All right, we're good. All right, so this portion of the final portion of tonight is kind of a question and answer dialogue. Kind of on what we did tonight, because the main thing is, again, one thing we want to make sure, we want you to know what you're doing, not just doing it. Because this is not a path just to follow because it's something to do or because you're curious. You should understand what you did, especially in the mass, because the mass more or less is the preparation. It's like a foundation, ritual or tool to kind of prepare your psyche. But the main thing when you're participating in the black mass, you really want to focus on the invocations, because there's energies being invoked that's seen and unseen and felt and not felt. We should really be paying attention to the wording. I am going to print it up. I was trying to get these all printed up and make copies. I didn't get around to it. But I would like to get copies of it. I'll have copies so like when people come, they'll stay with us, but copies that you can follow along with until, you just get familiar with the majority of it. There's many different types of black masses. I just want to be clear on that. The one that we perform, you're not going to find written anywhere. The reason why, because we created it ourselves. That's the reason why. And this path is about just that. Now, you can take this mass, you can make adjustments to it, you can perform it by yourself, you can do it collectively, you can make adjustments, you can subtract, you can add. The main thing is, as long as you adjust it to your fitting, where you're getting beneficial results out of it, mentally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Our order, or what we do when we gather here, that is, we have established that as the central rite of the Order of Chaos and Darkness. So it's a foundation rite that anybody really can participate in, because it's the foundation, it's basic, and it's a good tool to really study, learn, and understand as far as understanding what this path is about. Being a path of self-deification, okay? Being a path of self-mastery, okay? Remember, on this path, you're not externally worshiping. You didn't worship Set. That's just a symbol to activate an energy that exists in your subconscious mind. What is that energy? You heard many times in the Mass, the isolated consciousness. By accepting Set, again, that concept of Set, you're saying, I'm separating from the norm. I'm not a conformist. I'm not doing everything because everybody else does it. You've now separated. And that's part of really understanding what this path is about, is separating from all of the bullshit, okay? And I can't put it any other word, okay? Literally all of the bullshit, okay? This screen's acting crazy. And what I mean by all the bullshit is, when we were talking about earlier in the back, things that you've been taught. Most of us have been programmed since a very early age, okay? And I know some people will say, not me. Even if you didn't come up in religion, you were still programmed because you were around it all the time. You went to school. You were affected by it in some shape, form, or fashion. When you watch the news every day, you're affected in some shape, form, or fashion. When you watch movies, there's always a programming going on. This path is about deprogramming yourself, okay? I can't put it any other way. There's no right or wrong. There is no, the worst question I get, I hate when I get a bunch of emails where, what do you suggest? What do you suggest as far as what I should do and not do? That's the worst email you can send. Because what you shouldn't do and do not do, you and you, is going to be different for everybody. You have to figure that out on your own. This is not about a path about somebody holding your hand and doing it all for you. Doesn't mean you can't. I'm not saying you can't get guidance, you can't get instruction. That's not what I'm saying. But you're supposed to take the guidance and the instruction, and you're supposed to, utilize it to get some damn results. Because if you're practicing anything spiritual and you ain't getting no damn results, that's a self-reality check. You need to check what you're doing, because it's not working. I don't care if you liking it, that has nothing to do with it. If the shit ain't getting you results, see, people confuse liking something with being comfortable with it. There's a difference. Because I talk to brothers all the time that are in the Nation of Islam 20, 30 years. They can't leave because they're just so used to it. But that doesn't mean that it's right. You understand what I'm saying? So this path is about figuring out what's right for you. And the unique thing about it, I've mentioned this a bunch of times, What's unique about this is it incorporates many different spiritual systems. So you can pull from the Dravidian or the Hindu culture and work with Kali. You can pull from some of the dark gods and goddesses and work with them. You can take some of the fluffy shit, because remember, real black magic is intertwining it all. You can take light magic or white magic and black, but combine it. You understand? Not talking about earth magic shit and all that Wicca shit. That's not what I'm talking about. That's earth and nature magic. That serves a point. But what I'm trying to say is this right here, when you understand it and grasp it, this is the solution. And people keep saying, when we going to get answers? When we going to get solutions? Right? Look at all the nutheads with the solar eclipse. Everybody and their mother used the solar. I saw videos popping up left and right that, the solar eclipse projected all this consciousness. It's all fluffy bullshit. What consciousness did it project? I heard people interpret it a million different ways. You know what consciousness it projects? Whatever you looked at and got from it. Because you probably looked at it one way, I looked at it, to me it was just a sign of nature. I looked at it one way. He's going to look at it another way. But what becomes a problem is when somebody establishes it and tries to promote it as one specific ideology. That's the problem. All right, anybody have any questions on what we did tonight? I know somebody's got to have some fucking questions, but nobody has no questions. Everybody understood everything from beginning to end. I don't believe that. I know you might be processing it still, but I want to make sure you understand ritual. What's the purpose of ritual? Why do we perform rituals like this? Because rituals transform you mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and in some cases, on certain levels, physically. All right? You're tapping into a whole different level of vibration and frequencies. The implements that are used, you got to pay attention to all the implements that are used, the drums, all these things serve a purpose. They're not just done. The bell is rung to purify the air. You'll find that in most spiritual paths. You saw when we entered, we come in clockwise, enter out counterclockwise. This is all symbolic. The communion, what you're doing is communion, all right? The word commune means to what? Communicate, but it also means to what? To come together. Form of communication. As we said before in the last ritual, you'll find, for an example, that the Latin Rite of the Catholic Church, they took a lot of this concept from rituals that predate before the church was even in existence. Because we talked about last time transubstantiation. This is why I'm bringing it up, the communion. The communion is symbolic when you're ingesting it, right? Let me start on the religious end real fast and then take it up. They say, for an example, in the Catholic Rite, that the concept of transubstantiation, when the priest is transferring the bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ, right? That's what they say. That's what the word transubstantiation means. They're literally visualizing and performing a form of mental visualization, and that's what it represents. And everybody that walks up and partakes in that, you're literally participating in what they visualized it to be. That's why you're asked in the back room if you don't want to partake in the communion, because what did you say? The difference now between what they do and what we do, when you took it, what was the statement that you made afterwards? Do you remember? What did you say after you partook of your quote-unquote communion? Because remember, let's back up. And I'm glad you asked this, because I know you got to have questions. First, there was an invocation to Set that can be found in the pyramid text where we were consecrating the bread and the wine. Then we did an invocation to Set, where the bell was rung, and then the priest performing the mass ingested first, right? Because what you're doing, you said what? After you took it, you said, there is no part of me that what? It's not what? Of the gods and the goddesses. See, what you're saying when you take that is, I am God or I am goddess. There is no part of me that's not connected to that energy. Do you understand? There's nothing outside of me, meaning you're taking an oath to yourself. I'm not searching for God outside of me. I am God. I am goddess. That's the difference. So you're not worshiping a Jesus character, a Jesus figure. You're not, unfortunately, some people that study Egyptian consciousness, they worship the deities like they're literal objects of worship. You understand? Understand on this path the difference between worshiping a deity and understanding the archetype aspect of deity. Very important. So basically, again, what you're saying, like when you did your initiation, when you were blindfolded in the darkness and you had all types of shit thrown on you. You remember you were being played around with. You didn't know at the time, but we were throwing, what do we have? We had all types of shit, right? Yeah. Snakes and, you felt stuff crawling or you didn't know what it was. But the point is, that's to bring out the divine God mind in you. You understand? Because you're in darkness, you're blindfolded. So you're relying on pure intellect. That's the God, right? That, when the Bible talks about the light shineth in the darkness and the darkness comprehended it not, Christians got it all wrong. They ain't got shit to do with Jesus. That goes back to some of the ancient lodges. We have to be all day talking about just that one quote. You understand? That light that shineth in the darkness is the intellect. You understand? You tap into that intellect when you're in darkness and chaos. That's why we did. That's why we invoke the serpent of darkness, a pet, because its origin in the Egyptian text. The process of it is it originates with a pet, and we talked briefly last month. We talked about who was the only one, according to the Egyptian text, that could keep a pet at bay. Was Set. Remember, Ra couldn't even do it. Ra spent his whole life, as it says, symbolic, trying to keep a pet at bay. See, that's the difference. See, that's your religious people. They're constantly fighting an external force, you understand? And looking for another external force to tap into that's going to help them conquer this other adverse external force that they're fighting. And Set comes along and says, that's all bullshit. You understand? I don't need to worship any of you gods, because all the aspects of the gods reside within me. You just got to know how to tap into them, when, where, and why. That's what this is all about. That's what left-hand path, that's what these rituals are about, to tap into that part of your consciousness. Now, also understand, as you do these rituals, okay, some will get effects right on the spot. Some might get it hours later after the ritual is over. Some might get it days, weeks. Some people will call me a month or two after it's done and have some type of dream or experience that connected to this. I get that all the time. Because what happens is, when it takes a little bit of time to penetrate the psyche, the subconscious mind. Because what happens is, you see, when we do a lot of the African rituals, African witchcraft, when we do a lot of the Igun worship, and we bring down the spirits of the dead, like the Baron Samedi ritual, I still get emails about that today. Because that's a different type of energy. And some people, you've seen when we had the Baron Samedi ritual, there's a lot of people here. You saw the one young brother, you'll see people that come, they fight it at first. You see the fear. You see it. You see them sitting down. And it took that brother 2, maybe 3 times, he said, before he came. And then he finally let the spirit take control. Because I saw him one time, he was sitting in the corner there, stiff as a board. And the worst thing you can do is when the spirit is coming through, or you're tapping into some type of energy, is resistant. You understand? You have to let your fear go. So what happens is, it's normal for the subconscious mind to put up a psychic self-defense, put up a defense against it. Because when fear of the unknown kicks in, you put up a defense mechanism. It's human nature. It's normal. But this path will teach you how to discipline yourself, control that, relax. And when that starts to happen, you'll find out when you can just let it go, relax, and let it consume you, then you'll see what will happen. You understand? Now, also, in those rituals, you'll see we use a lot of herbs, there's a lot of cleaning, there's rum. The reason for that, and I was explaining earlier, these type of archetypes, you don't use any of those implements. It's not part of that spiritual system, it's not necessary. When you're using the Igun or the African traditions, most of those Congo spirits, etc., they do require that. That's why we use it. So I want to make sure you're clear in understanding that. So when you're coming to the rituals and you see all these things being done, being used, don't be just like clueless, like, what the fuck, why are we doing this? You should understand why we're doing it. And I'm going to be honest, it's not for everybody. It's really not. You'll see some people, like one lady that came. There was a lady here, I'll never forget this. This was, I think, maybe was it 3 months ago?
About 3 months ago.
She was here. They do some yoga, some really peace and love stuff before we come, which is it's great. That's your thing. So we were coming in, setting up, and I never met the lady. I never seen her, and that curiosity kicked in. Curiosity killed the cat. So she's like, yeah, you guys, I heard, it's going to be some type of drumming ritual. I said, well, it's a little more than that. That was the ritual we did before the first Black Mass. The Congo, yeah, for the Congo. And I said, all right, well, if you no, it wasn't the Congos.
Kali? No, that was the first one.
No, it was the last one we did blindfold, the second one. The Holy Death, yeah. We were for La Santa Muerte, yeah. We did the Holy Death, that's right. And so I told her, I said, be honest with you, if you don't know what it really is, I don't recommend you do it. I said, well, I really don't have time now to explain this to you. So she said, well, I want to stay. I said, all right, well, if you want to stay, go ahead and go in the back room. She went back there with you guys, and I said, I was telling you, I was like, oh man, I'm telling you, I don't think she knows what she's getting into.
Yeah.
So I gave her another opportunity. We always go in the back. We give people an opportunity. If they want to leave, they can leave. We make sure it's of your own free will and accord. Whatever you participate in, you do it of your own free will and accord. We never force anybody to do anything they don't want to do. And at any time you can leave. But we do ask before we start if you have any thoughts, leave. So I went back there. I saw her sitting back there. So I went back there one last time. I said, look, it's everybody's last opportunity. Everybody want to do this? Yeah, okay. I said, well, it's your last opportunity. If you want to leave, you can leave now. So I'm looking at her. Now, she's still puzzled because I can see her eyes are big. Like, now she's like wondering, well, what is she getting into? So she decided to stay. So I think she thought in her mind it was going to be some, like, I guess some yoga shit or some kumbaya, like we're going to be holding hands. I don't know what she thought. I guess when the blindfolds came out, that kind of frightened her a little bit because when she walked in, man, I was looking at her, and
There was another brother that was too scared. He was older. He was scared to even.
the Jamaican dude.
Yeah.
He was going to leave during the ritual because he was trying to take the blindfolds off.
And the crazy thing about it too is like you have to engage yourself while you're in the ritual. You don't got to be thinking, okay, we say set. What is set? And what is the set principle side of me? We say a certain thing. You only fear yourself. We're not really tapping anything outside yourself. You got to really look at what is that aspect of me, within me. So it's like, I think what people do is when they come with that religious mindset, they still.
Yeah,
you still things religious, like
he was yelling, "I'm going to defeat the jinn." You know what I'm talking about? Character, man. I'm going to defeat the jinn. And I'm just looking at this dude like, and then he was standing like, and he was trying to like edge up his thing. I went up to him. I said, "Look, man, if you want to leave, you can leave." Yeah. My thing is, what that basically shows. Why we're bringing that up is, it basically shows those inner fears that people are afraid to face. How are you going to really accomplish anything? There's nothing great worth accomplishing if it's not a hard-earned struggle. See, people want to become part of something spiritual, but they want it all handed to them. Look, you can read all the books in the world. It's only going to get you so far. Okay? If you don't gain any experience by doing spiritual work, you'll never grow on any level. You'll just be a person that's walking around with a lot of book knowledge. We run into them. Look, I've been doing it. Those that know me, I've been doing this shit for over 25 years. I've sat down with people that can recite no books left and right. The shit bores me. It doesn't impress me. Why? Because I used to be one of those people. And I'm listening to this shit like, okay, yeah, you can recite all this history. You can break down all the Egyptian dynasties. You can sit here and people. One thing people are good at doing is giving you the problem, but nobody gives you the solution. Like, everything is a conspiracy. I can't deal with people like that. Everybody wants to go on YouTube and make videos of Donald Trump. Who fucking cares? Bottom line, that only affects you. Look, I'm not saying, does it have a global effect? Yes, to an extent. Does it affect you directly in your immediate environment? No, it doesn't. Not if you know how to work magic. So people want to know, people that are reactive get caught in their emotions. See, I keep telling you, you're playing right into people's hands. People want to protest. Look what happened. Let me ask you all a question. Who lives, anybody ever do the demographics on Charlottesville?
Well, I can tell you that. It's just in the state it's in.
Right. But did anybody do the demographics on who and what lives there? Do you know most of the protesters that came there were not even from Charlottesville? So here's the thing. You gotta think. You gotta be proactive instead of reactive. What does it really matter if some redneck Ku Klux Klan members are protesting in a redneck town? The best thing would have done was not even go there and have your own protest in your own town, because them motherfuckers are not going to come to big cities, to big urban areas. It's not going to happen. So somebody created a setup. Because you're going to a redneck town where rednecks control, where rednecks want to march, and the police are all in cahoots with them together. So people walk right into the ambush. Now, you get caught up in your emotion because you think you're doing something good. Well, we're protesting racism. For who and what? Who are you protesting for? Who cares what goes on in Charlottesville? I can keep it real. I can get that place burned down. It has nothing to do with us. You think they're going to come to Overtown? You think they're going to come to the Bronx? You think they're going to do that shit in Brooklyn and Queens? I told you what happened last time they tried to come to New York when I was there. Clanman lived in Queens. They burned his house down. They had to give him a police escort out of the city. And only about 10 of them showed up to the protest. And they all got their ass beat. It's not going to happen like that. See, a good war strategist, you make them come into your playground. That was an ambush. Don't get caught in your emotions and fall for that shit.
That's what white folks do.
Yeah.
They pay checks. They don't play checkers. It's a strategic thing to do.
I say they play Monopoly.
It's checkers. Someone throws something and you throw.
I'm bringing that up because this path is about controlling your emotions. One aspect you know that when you grow on this path, a lot of shit that used to bother you doesn't bother you no more. You can sever ties with people that piss you off, that used to piss you off and used to have vendettas. Now you're going to find out that people don't vibrate with you. You just want to disassociate with them. You don't even want to argue with them. You don't want to fight with them. You don't want to hold no vendettas. You just want complete separation. Just get away from them. That's the solution.
So you're saying that the rituals are what we do. We're literally changing our frequencies, our energy, our vibrations.
You're tapping it. You're altering your frequencies, your vibrations. Things that you tapped into that used to irritate and piss you off, don't no more. And then you start tapping into other aspects of your subconscious mind you didn't even know existed. Or you tap into potential that you didn't even know was there. Doors start to open up. Opportunities present themselves. Doesn't mean you don't have to do the work, because I want to create the illusion that it's spooky and that poof and everything's just going to magically happen for you. That's not real magic. What I'm saying is opportunities present themselves, but you're going to have to do the work still. That's what this means. It's a path to self-deification, a path to self-mastery. There's a difference. Okay? It's very important to understand that. But don't get caught up in all this emotional shit that's going on. It's going to get worse. Trust me, it's going to get worse. I told you, go pull the statistics. Here's another statistic, and I haven't had one person come back and bring me it and validate it. And I'm telling you, do it. Do you know there's more white people that get shot every year by police than black people? Did you ever look it up? Now, you don't think that because why? Because they don't publicize white people or Asian people getting shot on the news. But anytime there's a black person getting shot, why is there always a camera around? A phone? And why is it uploaded to Facebook and YouTube in a matter of minutes? Somebody's playing a fucking game with your emotions. They want to tap into your emotions and get you angry and let that hatred build up. And you want to get so aggressive that you want to go out in the streets and protest, and then boom, they can bring in the tanks. They can bring in martial law and say, look, they can't govern themselves no more. We got to take over. I'm telling you, it's all set up. Why do they constantly publicize this shit? And then thing that baffles me, that cop, I believe it was Minnesota, and the one cop that shot a couple of months back, the guy that was sitting in his car picking his son up from college, you remember that shooting? It was a black cop that shot that dude too. And then the cops in the Freddie Gray case, it was a black and a Latino cop. Where was the uproar by black folks about police brutality? So is it okay for a black or a Latino cop to shoot a black person? Is that what we're saying? I'm confused. This is why I ask people, what's the basis of your protest? Is it police brutality? Is it racism? Or is it both? Or is it you just fucking confused and you're so emotional that you don't really know what the basis of your protest is? Most people, it's emotional. They'll tell you it's racism based on what? You know what cures majority of the shit? I mean, this is the reality. This might piss some people off. This is the reality. Most people that are out there bitching and complaining are piss broke. A solid income would cure all that anger and frustration. I'm telling you, mark my words. You know, we used to be those militant motherfuckers 15, 20 years ago. I'm telling you, I was there, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, didn't do a damn thing for me. And I realized because back in them days I was angry because I didn't have shit. You find out a steady income, living a good life, and yes, physical and materialistic things are part of it. Don't let nobody bullshit you. Anybody that tells you all that spiritual fluffy shit, oh, don't be in the world, this and that, get as far away from them as you can. Because I guarantee you they're piss broke and unsuccessful. I'm telling you, it's a fact.
That's the only way you can be spiritual, right?
Well, they confuse poverty, with suffering and poverty with being spiritual, like they sacrificing for some great cause. You know, when I started to grow, when I stopped sacrificing, you understand? Because I got tired of giving shit and not getting anything in return. And I don't say that in a greedy sense. I'm saying if you're putting in, you're putting in. That principle should suffice where there should be something growing from that. But on those paths, there's a bunch of bloodsuckers. All they do is they take and they never give anything. My giving back is doing this. I don't charge to do any of this shit. You understand? Because I don't need to do the money to do this. Yeah, I do consultations and things on the side because I like to do it, and it's a quick way to earn extra money. I don't need to do that shit. Has anybody ever paid for a ritual here? Anybody? No. We do this because we like to do it. That's it. This is our way of giving back. Teaching, educating.
Do you do spiritual work, or this is spiritual work? If you have a problem with the court.
Okay. Yes. There's many different things you can do for that. Depends on the case. Key is getting judges' names, lawyers' names, attorneys' names. She's done something similar. I'm not going to get into details probably, but I can tell you she's done some work with me similar. Then it all depends. And I'm not going to get too much into that on camera. Depends on what you want to do, you understand, to that person. There are times where it's called to call up certain energy, especially if you're in the right. You start out a certain way, but there's a process. Now, if you try certain things and you need a little more intensity, then it can go a little bit more, more intense. We actually had Brother Bokur Rodney Coleman on. He was talking about one aspect in the voodoo tradition. You can use. I don't use the Christianized version of the just judge. Again, I'm not going to get to too much of that on camera, but the point being is, when you get to that intensity level, you have to make it clear. Say if I'm doing the work for you, you have to make it clear that you're okay with going that route. That's the best thing I can tell you. And you have to make sure you're in the right, and you have to accept responsibility for it. Because wouldn't come back on me or somebody else that's doing the work. You understand? Because there's things, believe me, that can be done. But I like to start at the top and work my way down. I like to try to handle it. If we can handle it the most peaceful way at first, let's try that. But if you come to me and say, look, we tried a couple things, I want to go let's go a little more intense, then we'll probe to make sure. But I don't just, if somebody comes to me and say, you got spooky ass people. Let me give you this one quick and I'll move on. I had a sister come to me last year and I already knew off the bat that something wasn't right with the story. She came to me that there's some dude stalking her, she wants to get rid of him. I said, this is what you want to do, right? You sure? Yeah, it is what I want to do. I want to do whatever I got to do to get rid of him. I said, let's back up for a minute. See, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to go in and do work like that and not get all the story. I said, hold on, who is this dude? Because already I got a vibe from what you wouldn't tell me the truth. Well, it's a guy that I know. It's a guy that you know. Okay, and? He was giving me money paying my bills. Okay, here we go. Now the story's opening up. She was giving him some ass. She stopped, but she still wants the money. It doesn't work like that. You understand? The dude was giving you the money because he was expecting the ass in return and he wanted to control you. You understand that? Because basically the dude broke into her house because she wasn't accepting the calls, etc. So he worked his way into the house and was waiting for her in his room, freaked her out. But the dude was crazy. So she's taking money from him now. I said, and then he wouldn't let her work, and then every time she would find a job, he would stop her from taking the job. I said, that's because that's his way of controlling you. So if he gives you money, you're at his disposal all the time. Then you cut him off. Now picture this, you cut him off, but you still want to take money from him. What do you think is going to happen in that situation? So this was my solution to it. We didn't go that route. She had a job lined up, an interview, it was a decent job. I said, this is the way you're going to attack it first. You're going to go to the orientation of that job you told me. You're going to take that job. You're going to start supporting for yourself and cut that dude off. Well, you don't depend on him. Then you can handle it that way if he keeps harassing you. Long story short, problem solved. But the point being is this. You can't come to the spirits and work this path and be deceptive, because that shit will backfire on you. So she came with she had an agenda. But she wasn't being honest about the agenda. But I already sensed it when I first sat down with her. You You can't do that. A dude's crazy. He's giving you money. No man's going to give you tons of money, pay your bills if he ain't expecting shit in return. And if you think that, you ain't that fucking fly. Okay? Bottom line. Because there's another one waiting behind you. You understand what I'm saying? Because that's how those dudes operate. Because when you don't serve the purpose, they're just going to go find some other poor. And when I say poor, I'm saying mentally, another weak-minded individual to prey upon. And then when you don't want to do it no more, you still want the money. That's not going to work. So when you do work like that, you have a problem. Same thing with a court case. Now, were you the aggressor or were you the one attacked? Because that's got to be approached two different ways. You understand? And there's things that can be done, but all that's got to be discussed in detail and depth. It's a good question, but when you conjure up, for an example, if you're going to work with Congo and Palo spirits and work with spirits of the dead, and you're summoning these energies to maybe do something for you, they don't work for free, brother.
I had that whole thing with me and Simon.
Right.
My sister, she works with that kind of energy.
Okay.
And we were still having some problems.
Right.
And she says, I'm going to do something tonight to clear it away and move it away. And Simon's brother and I got into a big argument over that. And he made a statement. He says, well, why don't you just accept that we're going to give you 67 years old. How many more years do you have?
Right.
You don't want to have this lost boy forever. And I said to him, who knows, you might get the luck to learn this.
Right.
Guess what?
That's true.
He's dead the next day.
That's right.
Yeah, the next day. I heard from him all day. When his father went to his house, he was dead in the kitchen.
Wow. Did they know what he died from?
They said he died from a massive heart attack. But a guilt. When I called her, the phone dropped. She dropped the phone. I was speechless. We were just in shock. He was always in good health. Took a shitload of vitamins every day.
Yeah, no,
Exercise. And
Yeah.
his death just came as just
Out of
a
nowhere.
shock. Out of nowhere.
Well, you know your situation, and not to get in depth with it. You know you're already in the right. You got the upper hand. It's just how you want to play it now. And of course, everybody's going to tell you, take now.
But I had a guilt, a feeling that maybe I had something. She said to me, you killed him. I felt guilty.
You didn't.
Some energy that I conjured up.
That was coming one way or the other. That you didn't really do it. You were giving him the warning, and the warning wasn't taking heed. It's difference. You were being used as a vessel for him to come to the recognition to understand something. Now the question is, you don't know what he did from the time he left you until that next morning. That's something you need to meditate and focus on. I'm telling you that because I'm getting a massive headache, migraine in my eyes, everything. You need to sit down and focus on what he did after he left you. And you'll get more explanation of what took place. You understand? But I'm telling that to you to tell you is, no, you didn't do it, Tony. Don't think you did it, Tony.
No, the reason why I told her she killed me was because her sister told her to light a black candle, and whatever was blocking the path
Would clear it up.
would clear up. And it so happened the
Right.
result was him dying. So that's why jokingly I was like, you lit, because she freaked out and she blew out the candle right afterwards. So that's why I said, the minute you lit that candle, you didn't know what exactly was going to clear the path that was blocking.
Right.
But to me, that was really an answer that
Yeah.
was the issue.
I probably would have let that black candle continue to burn. I'm serious, I would have. I would have let it completely burn out because remember, always understand when you burn a black candle, what you charge it with is what it emits. So I would have just left that thing burn. I mean, it is what it is. It's always about your intent. Never get scared because remember, you know if something like that ever happened, I mean, even though like what she's saying is true, even though something like that happened, you gotta remember on this path, you can never ever, have false sympathy or sorrow for something or somebody that you can't control. You have no control of that. No control in the sense your power is going to be emitted one way or the other. Now, what I'm saying is, I'm going to back up real quick. What he did from the time he left you to the next night is a telltale a lot of things that happen up in here. You understand? So it'll come to you. Just focus on it, and it'll be clear. But you do have that power, so it's not that you set out specifically to attack him or any other individual. It's just happen. The best thing I can do is leave it at that. But on that note, there is a part of this path for that. But long story short, so we keep it moving. We've got about 20 minutes. Just got to be very detailed when you do that type of work. One thing I've mentioned it, I've talked about it. One thing I can't stand doing is relationship work, because 9 out of 10 times it's the biggest bullshit. The reason why I say that is I always question somebody and tell them, I say, look, why do you want to force somebody to come back that don't want you? Have you ever sat down and meditated on that? I wouldn't want somebody back that doesn't want me. Now, yes, you can do it, you can fix it, but you're going to have to stay at it to keep that person around. And sometimes if they leave, it's 10 times worse than the first time. You got to also be accepting of that. Because this is not a one-fix-all problem. You know how many people I get come to me, they can't get over a man or a woman? That's not good. That's a weak-minded individual. You understand? And there's more intricacies to that. I hate doing that type of work. I'll do it, but I'll be honest with you, that's the type of work I don't like doing. Because I feel like the person's a sucker, and I'll do it, but it's like, all right, you wanna be the victim. All right, we'll prep you to be the victim. But my philosophy is I try to talk them out of it first. I say I recommend you move on. Let's do a ritual to find somebody else. You know, as opposed to trying to bring somebody back that treated you like shit and that doesn't want you. Why would you want to do a ritual for that? You understand? One thing you're gonna find on this path, and I learned this 10, 12 years ago. It don't take quick to move on, and that's a beautiful thing. Like, if I know whether it's a friendship with a man, whether it's with a female, once it's done with me, it's done. I'm good. You know, I'm not gonna sit around soaking and carrying on and why don't they like me? I'm not gonna do that shit. You're not gonna do that on this path. You understand? Anyway, that's part of it. Anybody have any other questions on anything in the ritual, the drumming, the mass, the invocation? I see Jason thinking over there.
When you took me and you kind of spun me around and you touched me, I felt sort of an electricity.
Okay.
And kind of like, you know, I felt like I was going to just fall from it.
That's okay. Now, know this. I'm glad you described it as an electric and an energy, because that's everything what this is about. Archetype, energy. You hear us say that all the time. Now, what we did tonight was a little more laid back than the Agoon stuff. If you ever come to the Agoon stuff, and I gotta refer to what's Tanisha's name again? Lady Mystic. I always use her as an example. And I love to use her as an example because Lady Mystic's from Minnesota. And I did a couple consultations with her on Skype. And she's got strong Congo African spirits. And she's come to a few events. And I told her, I said, first time you come to one of the Congo events and the drums start playing, yes, I mean, how long were we into the ritual?
2 minutes.
Maybe 2-3 minutes.
I don't think it was that long.
Only
No,
think
they were
that
not
long.
like that.
I mean,
That's fast.
if you saw her standing over there, and when that spirit grabbed her, everybody just backed the fuck up. And then the way she hit the floor so hard and hit her head. So you gotta always understand this, when the spirit mounts you, you can bang your head, hit something, you don't feel that shit. Like you see me, I could drink a whole bottle of rum, I'll finish a whole bottle of rum, I don't even notice it. The only thing I notice when I come out of it, my mouth is super dry. I feel like I can drink 5 gallons of water. My whole mouth is dry. But I can drink, when you're in the spirit, for an example, in that particular system, you can drink a whole bottle of 151 proof rum and it doesn't do anything to me. The whole bottle. But what I'm saying is when you tap into that power, like she did, and she was here for 5 minutes, and then the whole night, man, we got it on tape actually. If you go on the beginning, because we didn't expect it to happen in the beginning, because what we do on them rituals, we can't film in the, because it's not for us. So we just filmed the intro just to show people little pieces of it. So she caught it like 5 minutes in, and all you see is like, you see her to the side on the camera, and then you just see her, all you see is this, boom, somebody hit the floor in front of the camera. And I was just amazed how hard she hit her damn head on the floor. It didn't feel a damn thing. So I'm saying is, once you tap into that energy, whatever happens, happens. If you feel like you're gonna go on the floor, go on the floor. If that's what happens, let it go. Just roll with it, because there's a message in the communication. Some people go into a trance state or a meditative state. Like I had one sister, I believe it was that Baron Samedi ritual. She was trying to connect with her mother for so many years, and we did that ritual for the dead that night. It might have been even the Igun one, I can't remember.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a Holy Death. It was either the Igun or Baron Samedi, I remember. It was one of them two. And her mother passed away like, I think 2 years ago, she said, and she's been trying all these different rituals to try to make contact, communicate with her. And she locked in. She was sitting actually close to where you are, Chantel. And she was just in this whole, in that section of the room, locked into this whole energy. Well, long story short, she came up to me. She came up to me after the event and said, "Man, thanks. I finally was able to make contact with my mother." She said she communicated with her mother the entire night. That's a beautiful thing. Because what happened was there was something that was blocking it. No, it was actually the whole, that was the one where people bring pictures and they put it on the altar of deceased relatives. Remember that one? The one sister brought the urn with her mother's ashes or father's ashes. It was that ritual. So what happened is when collectively, when all that energy was here and we summoned, that was the ritual. Everybody stood up and recited names of people. Remember that ritual? You said names of individuals that had passed on. Everybody stood up. We went in front of everybody. Well, sometimes it takes that power to bring a bunch of that energy together. And it was the doorway or the gateway for her mother to come through, because the door was open that night for all of those spiritual beings that were getting ready to come through. And that was the gateway, that was the opening for her mother. She was able to connect because the energy was right. So all that was happening, or what I was telling her, was there was a blockage there. You just couldn't get past the blockage for whatever reason, but that don't matter. Focus on you did get through and work with it from there.
Yeah, I think it's very important to realize, remember that it's about your attitude initially. You gotta make sure you come in a relaxed state, and focus on like whatever you put out into it, you're gonna get back. So you wanna focus on like, you wanna make contact, you're gonna make contact. But and some people just seem like this is relaxed. People are just so uptight. Like even Lady Mystic, she was nervous at first, but I think she knew it was gonna come.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and that's the best thing.
You explain what is spirit. I hear some different versions.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Some people will classify spirit as something external that enters them. When I say spirit or spirit energy, I want to make this crystal clear. Your frequency and vibration is raised up to a point where you embody the energy of that spirit. That's what I mean when I say spirit energy. You understand? If it's an ancestral spirit or if it's an archetype energy. You understand? For an example, in chaos magic, when you're performing a ritual, let's say it could be for Set, it could be for Tahuti, it gets to the point where you dress up, let's say per se as that deity. You tap into all aspects that represent that deity to enhance the energy or the consciousness of that deity that resides within you. So that's what I mean on this path when I say spirit energy, but not everybody means that, because some people mean spirits that are in spook form or gas form, you understand, that comes to them and can get inside of them. That's one aspect. Can mount them, or they can communicate with these entities. That's another aspect.
So spirit is in the blood.
It is, because that's what ancestral worship is about. It's about connecting with those spirits or ancestors that reside in your DNA and your blood. So what we mean when we say it all resides within you, here's the thing what we're saying. It don't mean you don't have experiences outside of you. This is what I'm saying. Say you're at your ancestral altar and you're meditating on your deceased mother. I do this all the time. I can sit at my altar in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. I can conjure up a manifestation of my mother. So the experience is happening outside of me because I'm seeing an experience, I'm seeing an image of my mother, and every time I see my mother, she'll come when she was young and healthy, not when she was sick and old. A lot of time when you see relative or ancestral spirits, they'll come. I know people that have the experience, they see their parents when they were little kids. The reason why they do that is they come in the form when they were the most happiest in their life. You understand that? So if you say, why is my father or mother coming to me as a little child? They're coming when they were the most happiest. You're not going to always see them as you remember them when they left. You understand? So it's important to understand what you're experiencing. So what I'm saying is, you're having that experience outside of yourself, the experience itself, but the origin of it originated where? Within. So when we say the first principle of Tahuti, mental is all is mental, we're not saying that you don't have incidences or experiences where there's an experience that's creating this concept of I'm communicating with something, I'm visualizing in whatever image, form, shape, whether I'm seeing a physical being, whether I'm seeing something I'm classifying as energy, a shadow figure, some type of, whatever you describe it, you're describing it based on what you're pulling and conjuring from your subconscious mind. All of that has always been there, but it's coming out based on experience, how you were raised, what you studied, what was instilled within you. So I'm not saying you're not having an experience that appears to be external. That's why most people will classify a lot of this externally. But the bottom line is, when you tap into the psyche, the subconscious mind, it all originates here. What do I mean by that? Here's another example. When you have dreams, think about and reflect on dreams you've had as a little kid up until the present. Think of when you were younger, some bizarre ass dreams you had about. When we get to the age of 7, we develop an imagination. So you'll find if you really think and reflect back, there was that point in your childhood where you used to have what we call scary dreams or nightmares. We all did. Yeah, I know there's going to be somebody that wants to be special, not me, because I'm holy and my bullshit. We all had those dreams. That's because at that age you start developing an imagination. The word imagination, they play trick on the words. What also does it have root in what word? Image. Very good. All right? You create images in your imagination. Because in order to imagine something, you have to conjure up an image to formulate a vision for that imagination. So we used to have dreams. We all had dreams at one point or another when we were child about monsters, the boogeyman. Or you might have slept in some of us, not all of us, might have slept in a dark room and were afraid to cut the lights off. You saw the jacket hanging on the back of the closet, you thought it was fucking a person or whatever. And then you might have had dreams of these weird monsters. The thing is, you should question yourself now, how did I think, or what was the origin of those monsters and images that I conjured up? They were your internal fears. They were images that you created. You understand? So it all goes back. This is what we mean when we say all is mental, mental is all. Nothing happens outside of yourself. It doesn't mean there's not incidences that don't, see, people get that confused. So you're saying if I communicate with the spirit of my mother, that's not really happening inside of my, no, it's not. Not the actual experience, but the origin of it, yes. Because you just made a statement. Ancestral worship, of course, is about, it's in the blood. And why do you think in a lot of those traditions and spiritual systems, blood is used as an offering? Because they believe if animals are sacrificed in certain West African traditions, that all the negative energy is transferred in the blood and offered to the spirits. Blood has always been a powerful tool to transfer energy. And it also works on this level too. You understand? So I want to be clear. So when you have what is a spirit, the answer is going to vary based on whatever tradition, religion, philosophy, dogma that person practices. So I can only answer it based on my spiritual practice.
And are there many spirits?
Say it again?
Are there many spirits in you?
Men?
Many.
Men. I work with many.
Yeah.
Not just one. Not just one. But here's the thing. And I just did a ritual for a pet a couple weeks ago. I ain't gonna get into detail about that shit. But I'm gonna tell you what came out of it was not only is it a strong sexual energy, and we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah. And there was a lot of sex. I'll talk about that tonight. There's a lot of sexual energy that comes through here. But what happens is, I realize at that point, it brings to the surface, most of the archetypes and spirits and energies I work with are females, they're not males, okay? And when I say females, people get confused because they think that all female energy is very motherly and passive and very girly. That's not what it is. The feminine energy is more aggressive and warrior-like than the male energy when dealing with archetypes. Now, when you work with your personal demon, you summon your own, that would be equivalent to what somebody would say in a right-hand path system, your guardian angel. That's what they might call it. That is one of your main central spirits. My demon spirit, and everybody in here has a demon spirit and can activate it. That's like your central guide, your focal point. You understand? And they per se don't really classify under gender, male or female. The best way I can describe it is more of an energy. But most of the energy I work with is feminine, but very masculine in nature. You understand what I'm saying? Very masculine in nature. Sekhmet, very, very masculine, feminine energy is the best way I can describe it. Holy Death. I have a whole shrine set up for the Holy Death. Work with the Holy Death all the time. It's a feminine energy or gateway or doorway to the dead. You understand? Now, I reflect back because I've been raised around women. I got no brothers. I was raised by 3 sisters and my mother. I had women around me my whole time growing up. Now, some guys, that makes them sweet. You know, they might, you know, that wasn't the type of women I grew up around. My mother was no joke. My mother didn't take no shit. My older sister's the same way. She's like a living reflection of my mother. My second older sister, that's a whole other story. She's just fucking chaotic. I didn't want to get into that. And then my little sister's a combination of all that. And then there's me. So I was spoiled because I was raised, I always had women doing shit for me, cooking for me, taking care of me. I'll be one thing, I can't cook shit. Basic shit I can. You know, I'll cook the fuck out of some toast for you. No, I mean, I can cook basic stuff, but I'm saying is that was the downside. But I look back and reflect on it now, there was a reason for that. That was all part of the preparation. That's not a coincidence. I know now when I reflect back, I was around that strong feminine energy my whole life growing up. I was around women all the time, no brothers. You understand? So when you say male, I mean many,
Yeah.
yes, you work on this path with many, and I'm going to classify them as energies. I don't want to just say spirits. If you want to say spiritual energy, I can roll with that. Yes, you work with a multitude of different archetypes, energies, ancestral spirits, and bloodline ancestors. You start tapping into other shit like, this might sound crazy. And I don't want to get into a bunch of personal shit because then that's not reality to you guys. But I remember when Yogi Berra passed away, I'm a big baseball fan. The subconscious mind will tap into what it's familiar with. So I remember when Yogi Berra passed away, that same night, I had like an intense dream just communicating with Yogi Berra. As weird as that might fucking seem, but I know why, because it's embedded in here. So you're not limited to touching, just tapping into, you know, entities and archetypes in the past or bloodline. You might tap into something that may not be directly related to you. You understand? But again, we're not going to get into a whole personal thing. I'm just using that as an example. The only time I refer to personal shit is if it's in correlation with the question you ask. Okay? All right. Anybody else? We've got about 8 minutes. I want to try to make this 1 hour. Actually, you just want me to ramble on. Stop. Any other questions about the ritual? Drumming. Invocation to Apep. Everybody understand who Apep is and what it represents? Everybody clear on that now?
What does the Kundalini have to tie in with that?
Because Apep represents the serpent energy. So that's where, now I'm glad you bring it up because I was going to go back to the sex energy. You'll find, depending on the ritual you're working with Apep, it taps into a high sexual frequency. Because the serpent energy, the Kundalini, can be very sexual at certain points when the vibration and the frequency is raised up. So one thing you also got to be careful. I'm glad you bring that up. Is what I wanted to tap into a couple of minutes ago. When you start doing consistent work with a pet, you got to be able to control your sex force because the sex force increases. It's going to make you want to have sex more, literally. Which can be productive if you channel the energy correct. But if you have no discipline with it, it can be destructive.
You open up a sex portal.
You can't open up a sex portal. And it could be some shit you ain't ready for. No, I'm serious. It could be some shit. Apophis? Yes, because, yeah. Well, it's actually Apophis. And that's the Greek term, Apophis. Yes. That's what the Greek dynasties referred to the serpent Apep as. Yes.
I remember a little while ago, pops. You said don't find the pops again.
Right. I guess the sex force consumed them.
Yeah.
That's my whole point. There's a classic example.
With the sexual force, my own personal experience thus far has been, I was already high nature,
Right.
but it's immensely increased with the different practices I've
Right.
And one way I've learned to focus that is to channel it through sex magic itself, just to manifest. So I'm either offering that energy or I'm manifesting.
No, that's good. One good way to do it is self-gratification. Because I'm glad you brought it up, because having it just build up and lay stagnant, because with strong resistance leads to greater persistence. So you're right. I don't want to get into depths, but that's what happened with the last ritual I did. You have to exert that energy in some shape, form, or fashion. So sex magic is a good way of doing it, whether it's with somebody or doing it by yourself. Because a buildup of that's what I mean when I say the buildup of that energy, it can consume you if you don't exercise it like you're talking about. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's very important to be able to exercise that energy, because there's power in the orgasm, whether it's individual or it's collective. Whether it's worked, when you do sex magic with somebody, obviously you want to try to time the orgasm in unison, but sometimes it don't work. And the same thing when you're doing it individually, you want to make sure you're really zoned in on focusing on what you're at the height of the orgasm. That's real sex. We ain't talking about no tantric shit and all that. Touch me here, fuck all that. That stuff don't work. That's just a bunch of Kama Sutra, Hindu bullshit that don't work. We're talking about using the power of the orgasm to manifest actual results. I know people that have done it. We're trying to get a mortgage approved and buy a house, and they did it for like 5-6 days, bam, because they were having issues with their credit. Credit wasn't great. They were having every time they kept applying for something was going wrong. Long story short, they got what they wanted because they put that work in, which is good work, I guess, in that sense, right? But they put the work in. But yeah, that's a good point. It's the same thing. It could be with, people will tell you, and again, I get into arguments with this with the vegan crew. Food too. Food can consume, because people are under the illusion with this, don't eat any of this shit, but eat this only. Like, look, I mentioned this before. I don't want to get into this too much. Dr. Sabi, rest his soul. But Dr. Sabi's diet wasn't for everybody. Okay, you got to know your blood type. Okay, you can't be on. That's a tropical diet for people that live in a tropical environment. If you're O positive, that's not a good diet for you. That's actually going to give you jaundice.
I'm sorry, it's just like,
No,
if you're the O positive and eat like bird seeds, you're like, bro, you're like, you want a steak right now.
Look, I can't do it. I'm O positive. I couldn't do that diet. I was a vegetarian, like I said before, for like 25 minutes. Because that shit got me more hungry.
Yeah, dying.
Because O positive, O negative people are more aggressive in nature. They need higher levels of protein. Whereas A and B blood's more passive and neutral. They're more herbivorous or plant eating or vegetable eating type of creatures by nature.
Okay.
You have to know that. So to give one specific diet for everybody is incorrect. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. You can argue with me that shit all day long. I understand. See, O positive people intake a little bit of everything because it makes them immune to it. I'm not saying you go out and eat heavy and bad food for you, but there is a time. Every once in a while you sit down and have a good steak.
Yeah.
You have to. It's in our nature. It's that aggression. Because you have all that energy working through you, all those spirits work through you. You have to feed those spirits.
Yeah.
Because you ever smell a certain food and all of a sudden you crave it? You may not have had that shit, and you're fighting it. It's the same thing with safe desserts. You don't eat that shit all the time. But like tonight, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna get that. What's that shit we get?
Flanagan burger.
No, after that, the dessert, man.
Oh, it's not
The ice cream. That shit is off the chain. I get it once a month. I only eat ice cream once a month. So what I'm saying is, you got to learn to just. The only way you're going to be immune to something and master it is by indulging in it, not avoiding the shit altogether. Let me give you an example. Say you have high sexual energy, and you just keep suppressing it. What do you think is going to happen? Like we just said, it's going to consume you. So how do you balance that out? By doing just enough to appease your desires. You understand? Because if you're partaking, just say in regular boring sex, but there's other shit you want to do, but you're with somebody that you think, because you may not have communicated, they may not be into the shit that you're into.
Yeah.
How do you know that if you never asked and you never communicated? So you put that barrier and that wall up, And now that's pressing down on you, and because you never even communicated with that individual, you might start going looking for it somewhere else. Now that person may not be down with it, and you might have to go look for it somewhere else. That's fucking reality. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you.
You gotta be real with yourself, because if you're a freak, you're a freak. This is what it is.
You can't suppress that. You gotta learn to feed it just enough, but not where it consumes you. Same thing with food. If you like ice cream, don't eat ice cream 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week,
Yeah.
but train the brain. Because the brain, I'm telling you, it's like a fucking creature of habit. It knows if you start disciplining, I'm only gonna do it once a month. After you do it about 2 or 3 times, you ain't gonna do it, but trust me, once a month.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. You grew up, like, I grew up in New York. You walk past these bakeries when you were a kid. You smell, in the morning when they're making the bagels or they're making the pastries, you automatically smell them. The brain registers that smell, and then you start craving the shit every time you walk by there. You have to discipline the mind. I put myself on a system. I'm only going to stop in Wednesday and get that particular pastry. Now, after I did it a few times, when I started walking by, the smell wouldn't consume me no more. I'm trying to use these little metaphors to show you how you map path to self-mastery. But see, if you just give in every time you walk past a motherfucking pastry shop, and you're just going to go buy something every time you pass the shit, now you got a problem. That's an addiction. You got a problem. You understand what I'm saying? That's how you got to look at this. These are little techniques. Let me give you another little technique. You want to break habits? It's going to sound funny. Do little things differently that you do all the time on an everyday basis. Let me give you an example. If you constantly take your keys and open the keys, your door with the right hand, use your left hand. You want to know why I'm telling you that? Because it's going to make you stop and think and be able to reprogram yourself. Right? If you keep your keys in your left pocket, start putting them in your right pocket. Because it's going to make you stop and think. You understand what I'm saying? Just take little everyday, because people think that deep spiritual magic is always ritualistic with altars like we did tonight. No. High magic can be just in everyday life. Working your job. I don't give a fuck if you're a garbage man. Be the best garbage man you can be. Be the king of the motherfucking garbage man when you go out there. That you do that shit smoother and better than anybody else. That's a form of magic. I don't care if you're a secretary, answering phones, taking notes, running errands. Be the best motherfucking secretary. Because what that's going to do is lead to something bigger and greater. It's going to discipline you to the point where you do your job so goddamn well, it's going to open up another avenue and opportunity and a door for you. Don't ever approach mundane shit thinking you're going to get mundane results, because then you will get mundane results. So I don't care what you do. I don't care if you stock shelves. Be the best shelf stocker. Be proud. Let people, because people will notice that shit. This motherfucking face is all his shelves. Shit is neat. He's organized. People see that. It reflects.
It's an energy of Pentagon almost.
That's it. And what you'll see is that energy opens a doorway to a greater energy. See, the person that's miserable all the time, here's a person that said, motherfucker come to work all the time mad and miserable. Why? Nobody forced you to take this job. Go find another job. So I can't relate. You know, you go into these restaurants sometimes, especially if you go into a fast food restaurant, it's miserable motherfuckers, man. So I always like try to conversate with them, like, I try to break the ice. Like, you can just tell that some of them, and I know some of them are going through shit. I say, look, man, you know, you're too pretty to be angry with that face all the time. What do you mean? What do you mean? Look, if you're not happy, do something else. You know what I mean? But in the meantime, when you take an order, be the best order taker that you can be. Because look, you got to do what you got to do. But if you come in mad all the time, fuck, I got to do this shit, you're going to be stuck in a rut. You're going to be miserable, complaining. You're never going to get nowhere. You're always going to be broke because you're approaching it the wrong way. You got to start somewhere. Not everybody starts at the top.
Hell man, that's crazy to see that.
Yeah. And I'm telling you this from experience.
That's
I'm not telling you this. Ain't nothing was given to me on the silver platter. Everything I got to earn that shit. And I learned that from watching my parents. And like I say, I was fortunate that I grew up with both of my parents. Came from a strong family. That's what it was about. But I saw the hard work, struggle, the good and the bad times that they put in, and I dwelled off of that strength. You understand what I'm saying? So I know what it's like to work the shittiest of shittiest jobs. I know what it's like to be broke. Shit, I grew up wearing my cousins' hand-me-downs because I had no brothers. Went to school for years wearing my cousins' hand-me-downs. You understand? Never had new shit. And couldn't go to my mother, you know, like some kids could back then. I remember when 1986, when the Raising Hell album came out, and Run DMC came out with the Goose Downs. Everybody wanted a Goose Down in New York. Shits was $180. In 1986, that's a lot of fucking money. For a 15, 16-year-old kid, what'd I do? Went and got a job. You know what I mean? Cross Island Fruits, $3.35 an hour, off the books, cash. After about a month and a half, I had put a little money aside. Went to Jamaica Avenue, got my Goose Down. You couldn't tell me shit. But you know what the best feeling of that was? As I talk about it now, reflect back on it, I did it myself. I earned that money myself. I saved it myself, and I went down there and got the shit myself. Not that my mother wouldn't have did it for me, she just didn't have the money.
Tap into your isolated consciousness.
That's it, brother. At the time, I didn't know I had isolated consciousness. You understand? I was doing paper routes, 11 years old. And then back then, remember, you had to go to the doors on the weekends and collect. I'd get up before school, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning in the winter, delivering the daily news. Had one of them bikes with two baskets on the side and one in the front. You had to get off the bike, put the shit on the kickstand, lean on the tree, drop that shit in somebody's mailbox or open the door, slide in the door. And then every Friday night you had to go collect it, knocking on the door. 11, 12 years old. These kids don't know shit about working today. You understand? They want their mommy and daddy to buy them the latest cell phone or a fucking laptop or video game. We didn't have none of that shit growing up. You understand? We didn't have no video game shit. I think the only video game we ever had was used. Remember that ColecoVision shit? It was the line, boop, the ball would go up, boop, the other person would hit that. Atari 2600. I think we had one kid in my neighborhood that got Nintendo when it first came out. Everybody would be at his house because he was the only one in the neighborhood that had the shit. You understand? He was the first one to get cable. Cable? Shit, we had channel 2 to 13. That was it. No goddamn cable back then. You understand? But anyway, long story short, draw back on your past experiences to use them for your strengths now. Think those experiences served a purpose. It wasn't for naught. Use that because you can reflect back on it and use it in a magical way and draw from that energy and bring it into the now. Right? All right. That's it. We hour 6 minutes. We're gonna wrap it up. Appreciate everybody coming out. Next month, we're gonna do something on the 29th because I'm gonna be gone for a couple weeks in September. And not sure if we're gonna do a big one. We're gonna change it up. It's gonna be something completely different. Either September or October. I'm gonna see. Anyway, we're gonna marinate on, but we'll let everybody know. All right.